Good evening. Welcome to another episode of MXDTV. I'm your host, MXD. Thanks for tuning in. We've got a very special show tonight. I'm very excited about tonight's show. I had more coffee than I should have had, but that's so I'm extra chatty, just in case. I got to make sure I'm chatty. So I'm already pretty chatty, but after the coffee, I'll be ready to go. So we've got a special guest tonight on MXDTV. It's episode 17, by the way, which I was thinking about that. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day or yesterday about it. That tonight will be episode 17, which is a lot of episodes. So I'm kind of proud of that. I didn't think I would do this live stream thing, but now we're in it. And so episode 17, and we've got a special guest tonight. My guest tonight is my executive producer is chiming in, and she tells me it looks and sounds good. Not great, which is not, see, that I can go to that right away. I want her to say it looks and sounds great, but she said it looks and sounds good, which leads me to believe it's not as good as it could be. Anyway, I forgot what I was saying. Oh, we have a special guest tonight. My guest tonight is novelist, essayist, poet, and playwright Joanne Stevelos. Did I say your last name correct, Joanne? You'll correct. I think I see you nodding. Okay. Joanne Stevelos is our guest tonight, and she's a brilliant writer. And okay, Melanie got right back to me and wrote "great" in capital letters. That's what happens when you live together. You just have to do what the other person wants. Okay. She's a brilliant writer, and even more so, she's the rare combination of great artist and beautiful human being. Usually artists are assholes, right? Or like really self-absorbed assholes. But not this time. Joanne is the opposite of that. She's a wonderful human being. So really excited to have her on the show. So without further ado, we're going to get into it. I'm going to play a couple songs that I picked because of who Joanne is to me and how she makes me feel, and how her work makes me feel. And I'm going to play those songs now. I'm going to also draw your attention to behind me. You'll see I have a lot of things behind me, but right there, covering up Melanie's cool painting, which is usually what you see right there, you have a copy of Wildwood Road on vinyl. My vinyl records finally came in. So many of you have ordered them, and I'm in the business of boxing them up, and I'll be shipping them out probably Monday. I'm trying to get it together. I'm really slow at that process, so we're putting it together. Those of you that have ordered vinyl, thank you very much. Thanks for helping us put that record together. And if you don't have a copy of vinyl, a vinyl copy ordered, you can come see us play at the Colony Sunday, May 29th. I'll have them with me, and you can get one for a discount. If you pay to get a ticket to come see the show, I'll give you a vinyl record at a discount. And if you know me, I'll probably just end up giving it to you, which is, everybody tells me not to do that. I'll never make any money. Let's see, Eric Squindo's here. Woohoo! Yes, I just boxed yours, Eric Squindo. I probably shouldn't have done that. I probably should have just waited. No, I'm going to send it off. I just put yours in a box today. We got to get him in the music store. I saw Jeff today. I forgot to ask him. Okay. Hey, Eric. Thanks for tuning in. All right. I'm going to play a couple songs, and then we're going to get to Joanne. This one is off of Wildwood Road. I play it often, and I'm going to play it again. Mary, the interstate finally revealed my fate. I watched the sun turn red outside Virginia at 6 a.m. As I rode along, started to hum you this song. Something new and different than the motel dirge inside my head. And it goes like this: I love you, baby, and you're as white as stars. Mary, the human race is flawed and filled with hate. We can't change their minds. We can only sing the songs we write, and they go like this: I love you, baby, as you sleep beneath the stars. Don't forget now, I love you, baby, as you spin beneath the stars. We can only be who we are. Mary, the interstate, it winds and makes its way. It takes you far afield, where it's hard to know just what is real. When you're a long way, when you're a long way from home, when you're a long forget now, I love you, baby, as you spin beneath the stars. We can only be just who we are. I told myself I wasn't going to yell while I was doing that, but there I go, yelling again. The reason I picked that song will be revealed over the course of Joanne and I's conversation, but yeah, well, I'm not going to talk about it too much because we'll get into it. We'll talk about it, and you'll understand why I chose that. Melanie put, I don't know what that is, Melanie. What is that? This is a song. The song I'm going to play for you now is called Feed the Saints, and it's not on any record anywhere, but I play it live often, and I've had it for a long time. I wrote it after I read a book by a guy named John Lewis, who is pretty, he's gone now, but, oh, those are stars. Okay, thanks, Melanie. John Lewis was a major player in the civil rights movement, obviously, and politician and inspirational dude, but he wrote a book called Walking with the Wind, and after I got done reading that book, I wrote this song. I wrote it in like 5 minutes. And I shall not be moved from this here counter. I will not be told that I can't stay. I will not be made to sit in silence. I am not afraid. And I shall not be burned with sticks of fire. I know why the hooded hide their face, and even though they hang high my father, I refuse to hate. The blood of God comes pouring down to heal the faithful and to feed the saints, to grace the graceless, and I shall not be moved from this place. I shall not be made work for hours. I will not be pulled apart that way. I will not earn cancer for your dollars, 'cause I am not a slave, and I shall not be moved from love's table. Even though you take away my plate, I will eat the bread of life, my brother. Even though you hate, see the blood of God come pouring down to heal the faithful and to feed the saints and to grace the graceless, and I shall not be moved from this place, and I shall not be moved from this place, and I shall not be moved from this fucking place. All right. Looks like we've got some folks tuned in. Let's see what's going on here. This song has been running my head for the last week. Oh, John Light. Thanks for being here, John. John Light, such a good dude. Thanks, man. And then Melanie put a heart for John. And then we've got the poet Sam Pereira here. Thank you, Sam. What an honor. Sam was our guest two shows ago. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. The wonderful poet Sam Pereira. Thanks, man. And now, without further ado, I've hogged enough time. I've taken up too much time. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Joanne Stevelos. Am I saying your last name right? Yeah?
It's fine. Stevelos.
Stevelos. Stop. I knew I was saying it wrong. I knew it.
It's okay.
As soon as I was saying it, I'm like, I bet I'm saying Joanne's name incorrectly.
Okay. My last name is a long story.
So. Say it again. Say it one more time for everybody, please.
Joanne Stevelos. But just call me Joe. Most people just call me Joe.
He says it right there. Okay. Yes. Welcome to the show, Joanne. Thanks for being here with us tonight.
Yeah. I love the song you just played. I was writing down some of the lyrics as you were singing. Grace the graceless shall not be moved from this place. I mean, this is beautiful.
Thank you very much. I chose that song because of you, because you have strong conviction, and you seem to actually care about the world a little bit and care about other people's plight other than your own. Mm-hmm. And when I wrote that song, I don't necessarily believe in God, so I was nervous about that, but I was trying to write it from the perspective of somebody like John, who was willing to lay down his life for a cause, and I'm not willing to do that. I'm pretty scared. I'm a scaredy cat and selfish. So I just thought people that are willing to do that. I wondered what that would be like to be somebody like that.
Yeah.
I've never had to do it. Number one.
Right. Yeah, that's when you have to lay yourself down there.
Right. Hmm.
That's a whole different space to be in. But I think it's interesting what you're saying, like about God. I spent probably way too much money with a Jungian analyst once, just focused, just focused on the John Lennon lyric,
Right.
God is a concept by which we measure our pain. And
Right.
like I got into an existential crisis just on that. So I hear you about
Right.
God. He's complicated, or she's
R-
complicated.
right. Yes, totally. And the other reason is because in your play you have some pretty strong characters, some strong-willed characters who believe in the bigger picture, and so that was the other thing that Lucy and Addie in your play Little Red Wagon, which we'll get to. So that was what moved me to choose that song. But then I chose "Marry the Interstate" because you are you advocate for children. Am I correct? And
Yeah,
you
yeah,
in your
that's
work, you want to
correct.
tell us a little bit about that? Do you
Yeah,
mind?
no, not at all. So my background is in public health and bioethics, and I specialize in uh, all the other taboo subjects for children. So child sexual abuse prevention, treatment, mitigation, bullying, but more so bullying within the home, which a lot of people feel very uncomfortable speaking about, and the obesity epidemic that we're in right now. So
Mm-hmm.
it's more like, for me, it's not about weight, but it's about access to healthy food,
Mm.
and foods that aren't filled with endocrine disruptors that are helping put children into puberty early, which is
Mm.
also another huge issue. And then I do a lot with youth suicide as well.
Mm.
So I just started a institute called the Hope Institute with Dr. Anthony Scioli
Mm-hmm.
and Dr. Stephen Hoovel
Mm-hmm.
and Raza Abbas. And we hope to like make a little dent in this youth suicide crisis we're in right now. So that's my day job, so
Yeah.
to speak, but mostly my life. That's my life.
Yeah. So, what moved you to I mean, I know you speak about suicide ideation quite a bit, and child abuse. You're a strong advocate for children, and what moved you to take those subjects on and to be, you know, a crusader, so to speak, for those. What compelled you to do that? What?
Yeah. Well, I think part of it is that I think if you are strong enough and have a good enough support system, that that there's an for me it feels like an obligation or responsibility to to be there for. I want to be the person who I needed, and so I guess that's the way to think about it. Um, and so that's kind of where I feel, and I feel very blessed in life. I my life turned out much grander than I would have ever imagined it when I was a kid.
Right.
And I've had a lot of privilege that was based completely on luck. So I just happened to run into the right people at the right time in my life and have been able to get into a position where I can use my voice and I can use my place here at the table to actually advocate. So, and I think another part of me, and I think you and I talked about this in the past when I did my interview with you, is it's really important for people to know that you can live with suicide ideation.
Right.
Like I'm here.
Right.
And I've
Right.
had suicide ideation since I was 8 years old. So I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you can learn to manage those feelings, and I think I think we need to share that with our youth right now, that
Mm-hmm.
what they're feeling sometimes can feel impulsive or
Right.
feel um, despair.
Mm-hmm.
There's 9 types of hopelessness.
9.
And so, this feeling of doom, this feeling of not being able to be stuck,
That
um,
seems low, actually, to me. Are you sure there's not more than 9?
9. Yeah, I think there is, but that's the only ones we've been able to measure so far.
Right. Right. Right.
Raise money to measure.
Right.
So, but so I think it's important for us, especially in the way that art is a way for you to
Right.
manage some of those feelings. And I
Mm-hmm.
know for me, if I wasn't surrounded by artists, and gosh, we have such a wealth of artists
Mm-hmm.
between Albany and New York City. I mean,
Right.
the Hudson Valley corridor is filled with all of us, and I think it's important for us to share that there is a path to live and to create and to be part of a community with those feelings, and that
Yes.
and you can share those. They don't have to stay a secret.
Right. So we've talked about that a lot, like, and so suicide ideation. That is just simply, in case there's people who may not know what that means. That's just simply living with suicidal thoughts, which
Yeah,
is different than. Is that different than being suicidal,
that's a tricky question.
or is it the
A
same thing?
psychologist, yeah. So sometimes people think I'm a psychologist, but I'm not. I'm just
Well, I just thought. I mean, I don't. I'm not. I
no,
don't mean to
no.
put you on the spot.
Yeah,
I'm
no.
curious.
I want to be very careful how I answer that because I can hear my peers kind of like
Yes.
answering it for me.
Yes.
But the way I personally feel it is suicide ideation to me personally is living with thoughts of suicide. And for
Sure.
that, it's very different for everyone. Some people, they think about, they get near a ledge and they want to jump, which
Right.
is, or they think about hanging themselves or they
Right.
think about cutting themselves. So people, whatever that thought is learning how to manage it and live with it. And sometimes for me, it's just putting some music on and just getting out of my head for a little bit, or sitting down and becoming Addie or Lucy or
Right.
Walter or
Those
Evie
those are
or
characters from your new play, right?
yeah,
Yes.
so just becoming one of these characters kind of gets you out of that space. So writing for me has been since I was a little girl. I wrote my first play, I think, when I was 7 or 8 years old. It was a play like just what you would think a little girl would write. It was about, who was going to whose friend's house and who got to
Right.
play, who got to go first and what game they were going to play.
Right. Was it an escape for you, or was it therapeutic then? Right, like right away, right out of the gate.
No, it
Just
was it was instinctual.
instinctual.
It's the only way I can think about it. I
Yeah.
don't think I thought about, oh, I'm going to write a play because I feel like shit. I think I
Right.
just
Right. 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 Sure.
so, but it gives you a lot of control, right? Because I get to say what I want. I get to decide what people get to say, and I get a lot of control over an
Right.
environment, which
Right.
is really
Right.
fun for me.
Right. So I think that's a good spot for us, for you, to read something, don't you think?
Oh, yes. So I think another thing I really love to talk about. Do you want to do the play since we just talked about it first, or do you want to talk about
What?
Juno Diaz, or what? How do you want to go? Hmm.
Let's talk about. Let's. I'd rather you read something first
Okay, let's do
before
that.
we do the play. I want to
Yes.
hear. I just want to hear you read a little bit, and then we'll do the play.
Yeah. So I
Hold
wrote
on, real quick. I just want to interrupt you and say Mary Jo Glover is here,
Hi, Mary Jo.
joining in on this wonderful Thank you, Mary Jo, for being here. That must be a friend of yours, I think. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Well, thanks for coming. Okay, yeah. Why don't you? You're gonna. I'm gonna let you read something.
Yeah. So one of the things you and I have also just talked about is like how do we share and when is it safe to share and when is it safe to tell a story?
Meaning personal stories. When you
Personal
say
story.
share, that's what you're talking
Yes.
about.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so and that line actually came from my mother-in-law, Shirley Nelson, who just passed away. She opened up one of her novels with when is it safe to tell a story? And I asked if I could steal that line
Yes.
because it's such a
Excellent.
great line. And so I wrote an essay after Juno Diaz had written a New Yorker article, and after he had been kind of run out of the Sydney Writers Festival for accusations of inappropriate and aggressive harassment.
Right.
And I think it's really important, and this is another reason why I talk about this and why I admire him. And so I just want to read a little bit from that essay.
Great.
And if you don't know Juno Diaz, he's a wonderful, wonderful writer. He tends to write about hypermasculine cultures. And so some people are not huge fans of his work. If
I'm a
they
huge fan of his
I'm
work.
a huge fan. And so and one of the bravest things he did was write this New Yorker article, which I think helped a lot of men who have a harder time in this space sharing their feelings because of our patriarchal culture and because of the toxic masculinity that's embedded in our culture. That vulnerability I think is really important. So, and I've been honored to work with a lot of men who are able to create space for men to do this. And I think
Mm.
Juno did that very well. And so this is part of my why is kind of his why.
Okay, I'm gonna go off the screen and let you take over here. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Oh wait, I did.
So I wrote this in response to a lot of, of, of pushback that Juno was getting for his article and sharing his experience of child sexual abuse. So, what I'd like to attempt is to take the conversation away from the accusations and towards compassion. Juno deserves and has earned our compassion. We must hold open, compassionate space around him. He has proactively taken responsibility for his past, shared in his recent essay, The Silence, The Legacy of Childhood Trauma. I hope that these allegations, whether true or not, will give him the opportunity to continue to free himself and hold on to, quote, the second chance at the light, unquote. And if he needs a third chance, let us hold open the space for him to have that as well. Inasmuch as I feel it's important to allow Juno this as a child sexual abuse victim, it is also important to create the cultural expectation that we will hold compassionate spaces around all child sexual abuse victims. Public demonstrations of compassion to sexual abuse victims is essential to honor and support still silenced victims, the 1 in 4 girls, the 1 in 6 boys, who need to know we won't punish them for telling. It is also essential that as child abuse victims, we work to understand how sexual abuse affects our behavior and take responsibility for getting help to address the scars and rid ourselves of the residue of shame and secrets. And Juno has done this. He courageously wrote about the messiness of unraveling his story, its consequences on his personal and professional life, on his spirit, his sense of self, worth, and identity. Like many child sexual abuse victims, Juno has struggled with boundary issues. Many of us have done exactly what he has done, crossed social boundaries knowingly and or unknowingly, sometimes out of compulsion, sometimes purposefully. In Juno's recent New Yorker essay, he shared with us that he adopted a popular strategy of child sexual abuse victims to pretend it never happened. Classic trauma psychology, approach and retreat, approach and retreat. And like him, many victims, including me, try to tell ourselves that the abuser has no power over us anymore. We work hard to prove it, and some, like Juno, quite successfully. We also set out to prove that the events had no untoward effects on our lives as we engage in denial, avoidance, and numbing. This excessive suppression of strong feelings can make us vulnerable to dissociative behaviors that end up hurting other people. We engage in behaviors that express what happened to us, but in adult ways. We abandon people, we steal the truth from them. We wear the mask of our versions of normalcy. We don't commit crimes against children, but we are prone to reenact other parts of abuse. If we feel abandoned and unprotected, we leave others abruptly without a care. If we are denied the beauty of living in a shared truth with others, of having a safe, fiercely protected space to say what we see, feel, what we feel, we will deny others the truth. We lie, tell half truths, omit important details because we are never quite sure what the consequences will be for sharing what we see and what we feel. And the essay goes on to talk about all those different ways that we do that. And I just want to share the very ending of this because I think it's a moment of hope. Juno, like many of us, worked hard to protect himself until it was safe to tell. He learned how to survive in the dark, each secret another brick. But bricks can be laid on the ground rather than made into a wall. They can be a path for us to walk on, a new path from a solid foundation of accomplishment, genuine truth seeking, personal responsibility, and compassion for self and others. I wish for Juno that his path be away from these allegations chasing him down and towards the conversation he seeks that will help to, quote, Teach all men about consent and boundaries, unquote. A path that lets him hold on to his hard-earned, quote, second chance at the light, unquote. A path that is lined with people surrounding him with compassion and support, not publicly shaming him. Fortunately, he understands that, quote, repair is never ceasing, unquote.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Oh, how come I'm okay. That's
I'm
better.
here. Yeah.
I thought I was echoing. Thanks, Joanne. That was great. I'm curious if you caught a lot of shit for writing that article.
I did. I had a lot of negative comments, specifically from women
I was
who
going to ask if it was mostly from
it was
women.
mostly from women.
Mhm.
And I still stand by this essay. And and there was just one other piece in here I just wanted to read real quick because it's really important that he talks about the mask and the masks that we wear, but he also talks about seeing the mask of the oppressor.
Mhm.
And many of us, like Juno, witnessed firsthand the power of the mask our perpetrator wore that allowed him to commit his crimes on us.
Mhm.
And Juno used the words mask 17 times in this essay.
Yeah, right.
It really resonated with me, this idea that we're going to, we want to look normal. We want to pretend nothing happened to us. And that it's going to catch up to you. The truth always wins, right? The truth catches up.
Right.
So,
I find that that's what I love about your work is that and we were talking a little bit about this, but you seem to take something and look at it from all angles. In particular when dealing with abuse, you seem to, I wouldn't say you side with the perpetrator, but you're very willing to examine their behavior and find the root cause of it other than just blame, which I think is really important to getting to the root cause of anything. But that conversation doesn't always exist. It seems like it gets, it's like you did this, or there's these movements and there's everything seems so black and white, but I think everything is so tangled up together. That's what I love about what you do, is you seem to really go after that sort of thing.
Well, that's one of my goals professionally, and I keep saying this publicly, and I keep scaring myself when I say this because it's a big job, and I don't know if I'll live long enough to do it. But Juno Diaz's perpetrator, who raped him, was somebody's son. He went to a doctor.
Right.
He went to a school. He was
Right.
surrounded by people, and I think what I would really, and most perpetrators are men, up to 90% of perpetrators are people we know. They're not the stranger. We know them. There's economic consequences to this behavior. And what I would like to see happen in my lifetime is that there's a screening tool for boys. We know that boys between the ages of 12 and maybe even younger now because of the access to pornography, very violent pornography.
Right.
And between 12 and 18 is when they when they cross a boundary of what we would consider normal sexual behavior and go with a younger child. And so I think there's a way that we can help children early who are overexposed to sexual content or who may need more guidance or therapeutic settings to help them lead a normal, healthy sexual life. Most of the times we find out about these guys, 30 years later with hundreds of victims behind them because of this secrecy and the taboo around it. So I'm saying let's help these boys early. Let's assess them and let's help them move on to a beautiful life that they should have just like any other child. It makes me sad, but I don't know if it'll ever really happen, but I would like that. One of my legacies is to have a tool.
Well, I'll tell you, me being a parent now and having a little girl, it's taken me a long time because I have a history of addiction and I have a history of, I turned into I don't like the person I turned into. And and it happened, I can now, in retrospect, now that I've been sober for a long period of time, I can pinpoint to you the exact time when things went awry for me. There was things going wrong in my childhood, but it was when I was bused to school across the city in 7th grade. I was sent on a city bus across, all the way across the city on my own. And then I was on my own all day on this bus. And that's when things really went nuts for me. And I just, it's like, is it I mean, is it just like a total failure of parenting that, like, we're not like too connected enough to our children that everything gets out of hand? Is it? I don't know. I mean, it's how
It's a lot. It's a lot to take in. And it's a lot to think about. But I do think that there's ways for us to think about perpetrators in the patriarchal culture, anyways, and what's sanctioned, and how women are viewed and how children are viewed within that. And so I think if we can help boys earlier in their lives, I think we can save everyone a lot of grief and a lot of pain.
right.
And I don't think anybody wants to be that person.
No, of
right?
course not. I don't think so. No.
I don't think so. I mean,
No.
that's my instinct, but there are no treatments. I mean, they're starting to find some treatment programs that help men, but it's kind of we're not even close to something therapeutic to help people. So I think prevention is probably better than treatment at this point.
Great. So you have a new play.
I have a new play.
Let's talk about that.
The play, it's called Little Red Wagon.
Yes.
And the play's about another exciting topic. It's a political activist that dies by suicide. Yeah.
You used a great term when we were preparing to do this show. You said you're going to outdark me tonight in content.
Double dark.
You're gonna. So
but we
far,
both like to laugh so much, so I think it
That's
kind of balances out a bit,
right.
But the play is about a political activist that dies by suicide, and I've been writing this play since the first Iraq War, and it has evolved into finally a 3-act play, which was originally a 1-act play that we've done 2 staged readings of.
Okay, so since I'm terrible at history, and how long has that been? How long has it been since the first Iraq War?
Oh God, I think what was it, like 2000? I'm 82,
Good
so
Lord.
it's been a long time.
Okay, why is it called Little Red Wagon? Is that okay to ask that?
Yeah, it's
Can you tell?
I'm
I think I know, but I want to hear you say it.
I'm a huge Dylan fan, and one of the songs is "Little Red Wagon, Little Red Bike." I ain't no monkey, but you know what I like? I like the way you love me.
It's from Blood on the Tracks, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
I love that song. I think it's a beautiful song. It's at the end of Blood on the Tracks. It's the last song, and I had Blood on the Tracks stuck in my tape deck for about 3 years, and that's all I play for 3 years. So I'm just so that's where that comes from, Little Red Wagon. And the play is about and I think it's very timely, because especially right now in the Black Lives Matter movement, we are losing a lot of activists who are dying by suicide. And I actually have just been a reviewer for Gail Christopher's work, which is Racial Healing, Truth and Transformation Cultural Fellows. And they're actually helping the community of activists use truth and healing and transformation in their communities to do basically God's work. I mean, they're really doing this, and talk about laying your life down. They're laying their life down. And so I had the great privilege of being a reviewer and interviewer of the applicants, and I feel so gifted because I learned so much from them. And now I want to rewrite the play since I talked to them, but I'm not going to, because it's going to stay like kind of like a time capsule now. But I think that it's an important work because we need to talk about this. And one of the things I think I was talking, I can't remember who I was talking to about, maybe it was one of the fellows, but there's this idea in activism, right, that we have to go to Washington in March, or we have to leave, we have to go to these big cities in March.
Right.
And I think that that is a little piece of what's happening, a very small piece of what's happening is we're asking people to leave their communities, to leave their support networks, to get on a bus, be tired,
Right.
be out there.
Right.
And I would feel despair. I mean, I have felt despair, like being in a crowd of strangers. And one of the choices I
Right.
made for the Women's March on Washington was I decided to stay home. And it was one of the first times I've really done that, where I've gone to big marches, and you feel good for a day, and then you go home and what?
Right. Right.
So
It's an interesting point you're making.
I decided that I'm going to stay home. I want my neighbors to see how I feel. This is the local conversation I need to be having. My neighbors need to see that I care about this. These are the people I see every day.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that in activism, I would love to encourage people to stay home more and do this in their local communities and not put themselves in these precarious situations and tiring situations where you're depleted and those
Right.
feelings of despair come come closer and closer and closer, and then you die by suicide on
Right.
the steps of a
Right.
federal building. Like
Right.
it's just not, it's not.
Right. Well, that's like a big thing in the play. It's like you have this woman who supposedly cares so much and wants to show her child that she cares and that she has conviction, but yet she takes her own life and leaves her daughter without a mother, and the father is continually trying to remind her of that because she's trying to emulate the daughter's trying to Lucy's trying to emulate her mother, right? And the father's worried that he's going to lose her too, right? And so there's this. I love in your play that because for me that's a big thing. It's like we can be so idealistic and we can get so caught up in these things that we lose the local responsibility or our personal responsibility to the people that we care about, which is like, that you can show your social consciousness or whatever in a very immediate or a very personal way, right? Without, you know,
Yeah,
I
it
feel
takes
like
more
that's what you're
effort.
talking about in the,
Yeah, it takes more effort and it's harder to do. Like I can do public health globally. It's harder to do public health right in my own my own neighborhood because
right,
people are like, "Who are you? What the fuck are you talking about?" Like,
right,
I don't want to do that. And then
right,
you have to like see them tomorrow. Where
right,
I can just go hold up a sign somewhere else and go home and
right,
I feel good about myself. So I
right,
think and the other thing I really wanted to demonstrate in this play is this history of activism in families. And it has a narrative in a family. And that narrative brings responsibility in the family as well. We want to think about that. Like, how are we teaching our children activism, and how
mm-hmm,
are we helping them show up?
mm-hmm,
Right now, of course, we have versus Wade on the table,
right,
and how do I help my granddaughters and my stepdaughters show up
right,
for this work in a
right,
way that they can be cared for and supported?
right,
So this narrative within the family, I think, is also part of the play, is how everyone's showing up to do that.
right.
So
Oh, you lost your light again,
I
Joanne.
did. You know
That's
what?
okay. You don't need to fret, Joanne, because I think we could take a
No.
poll. We could take a poll with the MXDTV viewers, and you as a guest will win hands down. Your setup is really cool, and so you don't need to worry. You
Well,
look good.
so is yours. So is yours.
It looks really great. So we have a special thing planned, right? This was your idea.
Oh, thanks.
We're gonna. So if it's fucked up, it's your fault. No, we're gonna read. We're gonna read. Let's see. Let's see. See, look, looks great either way, right? She looks hers, and you're like even your clothes are coordinated with the background.
They
It looks
are.
really nice.
I'm sorry, now my printer's going off, but
That's okay. So we're talking about all these deep subjects, and now we're just gonna be really like materialistic and like ego. So we're gonna read. We're gonna read a scene from your play, and you're gonna be Lucy, and I'm gonna be Walter. Should we
yes.
just shall we let people know? I have this here. Where's my glasses? Can I do this, or do you want to do it?
No, you please do it. I would love
So
it.
this is we're going to read from the second act of Little Red Wagon, which is written by Joanne here, and I'm going to read the character Walter, who's a middle-aged man, a solitary person, reflective, struggling. He may be a musician, a horn player, or an artist. He is funky, good looking, tall, wiry, with a goatee, is how you describe him. And
You're
you are, and his daughter is Lucy, and that's who you're going to play, a graceful young woman with a quietness that feels intelligent and curious. She dresses modestly, kind of H&M European cool. I'm an idiot. What's that mean, H&M?
It's just a brand. It's
Oh,
just
okay.
a brand name.
So you're going to be and Lucy, the character Addie was her mother who and Walter's wife who died by suicide, correct?
Yes. And so the Act One, Addie has left Lucy a letter that she has given instructions for the family to give her when she turns 20. So the Act One opens with Lucy's birthday's the next day. And then this whole Act One is, should she read the letter? Can she read the letter? And there's all this debate in the family. And at the end of Act One, Lucy gets so frustrated with the whole family about the letter, she rips the whole letter up.
Right, right, right,
And then all the characters come and they try to read parts of the letter.
right.
And so it's just this very dramatic, fun moment, especially for the actors, I would say.
Real quick, I just have to show you what Rose is saying. I think it's important that she complimented both of
Thank
us
you,
on
Rose.
how good we look. Thank you, Rose. Okay, so are you going to read the Lucy's defense part, or should we just read the scene? What do you want to do?
I think we
You
can.
got
Let's just read. Let's just read scene 2. Walter disagrees.
okay. So this is a conversation between Walter, the father, and
And
Lucy.
Lucy. Yep.
So
So
do you want to read all the stage direction, please?
yeah, I'll read
Okay.
that at this stage.
Okay.
So this is called scene 2. Walter disagrees. Walter enters the cafe. Lucy sits at a table covered with costume making items. Lucy is sewing.
Lucy, I have to talk to you.
I'm busy. I'm sewing Shanti's solstice costume.
I know you don't want to see me, but
But you're just worried that I'm spending too much time doing exactly what I was born to do.
it's not easy being your father, Lucy. It was anything but easy being Addie's husband, and it certainly wasn't easy being a son-in-law to Ezra. But you're my daughter, and that there is my granddaughter, and I have every right to be fucking freaked out that you're on the front lines every weekend wearing a mask with those antifas.
It's Antifa. Antifa.
Jesus, they couldn't even come up with a decent name for themselves.
I'm never going to be that person who brings a baby stroller to a nice Times Square protest, or a Marxist lefty, or a squawking centrist. It's not happening, Walter.
Walter? Oh, now I'm Walter? No, Lucy, I'm your father. Please, don't. I'm not saying you need to be a housewife and wear number 6 clogs and a salt strap and push a fucking $1,000 stroller along Prospect Park. What I'm saying is that when you leave Shanti and me to go bust up store front windows and throw rocks at cops, it's reckless and selfish.
Selfish? I'm doing this for Shanti, just like Mom did for me. Women suffer, Walter. Walter. Women suffer, and if we don't fight, the patriarch eats us alive. If it doesn't, make us slaves first.
Oh my God, you really fucking believe this shit? If Ezra was alive, oh man, he wouldn't believe his ears. You think you would have learned something after Occupy? Most people did, Luce.
Violence begets self-defense. If we used our force against the German Nazi Party, there would have been no World War II, no Holocaust, Walter. Nobody would have died. And we are seeing our own Holocaust every day. Every day we die because they can kill us. And it is abundantly clear they will, in plain sight. They don't bother with torches and hoods. They just get the badge.
The times have changed. We've all the tools for mass communication, coordinating massive protests, and yet we all fell for the promise.
Lucy starts rummaging around the table. She finds her headphones and starts to put them on. Walter grabs them from her and throws them on the floor.
And now are under surveillance like never before. Do you know that there are data points living on some asshole's desktops that show exactly where you have been for the last 5 years, who you spoke with, what you bought? You, Lucy, are under surveillance, and your actions are going to get you put in jail. And then what? What will Shanty and I do? And you're fucking 30-year-old, a mother.
Fuck you, Walter. Oh, excuse me. Fuck you, Dad.
A mother, Lucy, a mother. Mothers don't wear headphones. They can't just drop out.
Walter realizes what he's just said and bows his head. Lucy's devastated by his remark. She throws the costume onto the table and begins to walk off stage. Walter grabs her by the arm. Walter, I'm not going to jail. And if I do, Shanti will know I fought for her just like I know Mom fought for me. Walter lets go of Lucy's arm and sits in a chair, hanging his head.
She didn't fight for you, Lucy. That's the problem right there. She fought for herself. It was all about Addie, about her moral imperative, and she would throw that in your face any time you disagreed with her. She was exercising her rights. She was fighting the man. Well, fuck the man and fuck this never-ending protest. Protest the protest.
She fought for me.
Does no good. They're bigger and more powerful than you, and they don't give a shit about what you think or feel. Go to work, have dinner, sleep in a warm bed, enjoy the holidays. That's the life corporate America has made for us slaves. It's not that bad. It's pretty fucking okay if you stop and think about it.
Never. Fucking sellout. Ezra was right. You always take the easy path.
Jesus, it's just like you're channeling Ezra. You know Yumi helped raise you too. She had common sense. Why didn't you get any of that?
Yumi was a victim. Her only power came from being better than Mom and being in love with you. And look what good that did her. If she hadn't had that, she'd been a lonely waitress in a shitty little cafe.
Man, what are these Antifa selling?
Antifa. Antifa. Say it with me, Walter.
And why are you buying this bullshit? Lucy, I can't believe these words are coming out of your mouth. Are you depressed? No, seriously, are you depressed? You know your mom got depressed right after she gave birth. It could be genetic. We should get you to a doctor.
I'm not depressed. I'm angry.
Same thing, Luce. Same thing.
That wasn't too bad for being non-actors.
I thought it was really good.
Oh.
I thought it was pretty good. I hope I didn't butcher it too much.
No, I'm not. I'm not a good reader of this play. I really. Joanna Palladino directed the first one. She's the leader of Off the Record.
Yes.
And she's a great improv actor. She directed this play. I wasn't sure she knew that what she was getting herself into because we were at a dinner actually, and I was supposed to do this radio play, and she said, "Who's directing it?" And I was like, "I don't know." She's like, "It's 2 weeks away," and I'm like, "I guess you are." And so she kind of took it on and really did a great job because we in the play that we had at the University Club here in Albany, we had a great turnout of the community. And we also had people tabling. So we had like the local association for suicide prevention and a couple other local organizations tabling. And then instead of afterwards, when, you have like all the actors come out and you have that, like, let's talk to the playwright. Instead, we asked people to talk with each other about their self-care practices. So we really wanted to like make it about people and not about us. But the play also, which I wanted to mention, also has a live band on stage because I really love having live music with the play. And so it was Todd, Manuel, and James who played.
James Kirk?
Yeah.
And Todd and Kyle Esposito and Manuel Quintana?
Not Kyle, but Manuel.
Oh, right. Okay.
Three of them. Yeah.
All right.
So they played and it was really fun. It was a nice it was a nice collaboration. And so it will be fun to see if we can get this play done full length. So
yeah. So if people want to read it, where can they read it? Can they read it on your website? Or
they can read the first act in Dream Alibis, which is my chapbook.
Mm-hmm.
And the chapbook is another collaboration I did with Ryder Cooley, who I was in her band, the Gospel Fairies, which is a lovely band. And
thanks, Steve.
Ryder did the drawings in the book. So I
Uh-huh.
don't know if you can see some of these, but they're really beautiful drawings that go along with the poems
Mm-hmm.
and the flash fiction, and then a Little Red Wagon.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mika, and I can never say her last name correctly, and I apologize, but it's Dima Troska, did all the book design.
Oh,
It
yeah,
was
it's a lovely
so
book.
beautifully done. And then this cover is a photograph by
Can
my
it can they
Noah.
order that can they order that book anywhere? People
Uh,
those that want to? Or
yeah,
do,
they can write to me or they can get it on Amazon. I
and
wish
so
I
should we plug you really quick? We don't have to do it really quick. We can take our time, but uh what's the best way to get a hold of you? Through your website? Would you
through my website or just Facebook, but my
Mhm.
website is just my name, joannestevelos.com.
Okay, great.
So you can see my
And
projects there.
I'll just throw in your website's worth checking out because you've also got a really great blog that
Yes, I have a blog I write for Psychology Today called Children at the Table. And
mhm.
so obviously,
I hope people go there and read that too and go check it out. Yes.
try to put a lot of resources there for parents and caregivers.
Hmm. So, excuse me. The thing that happens on MXDTV is the time flies,
It did.
and so we're already almost an hour, but we can't leave. We have more to talk about. This I want to bring to. This is Steve Medina, who was my. I grew up right across the street from Steve, and he's from my hometown, Fresno. Thanks for tuning in, Steve. Um, we have to talk about your novel that's coming out.
Oh,
Can we get to that before we wrap things up here? I mean, we'll have to have you back on the show because there's just so much.
oh, yes.
But
So the
let's
novel,
talk about your novel.
the novel, do you want to read the little thing?
Yes,
How much time do we have? Because I have just a
we have
quick.
enough. We have a little time. I don't. We don't have to be done. I want to get to. I kind of want to get to this, and then
Way.
I would love for you maybe to even read a little passersby too.
Oh, yes. Yep.
So typically we go for to let's oh look, Melanie's got your info.
Oh, nice. Thank you,
Thank
Melanie.
you, Melanie. So we can keep going. I mean, oh, thank you.
Thank you, Martha.
Thank you, everybody that's tuned in. It's really great. I'll read this about your novel. You sent me this, and your the novel that you've got coming out is called Everything We Said, right?
Yes.
And it says here, I think I printed it. Everything We Said is a novel about reckoning with sexual abuse in the church, surviving trauma, and about a little girl named Jo Beth. Based on your own documented experiences with a Catholic priest, this novel is an urgent look at the taboo of disclosing child sexual abuse and our moral obligations to do so. Everything We Said tells the story of Jo Beth, the daughter of a divorced mother who has an illicit affair with Howard Russo, a newly ordained Catholic priest. This compelling and propulsive story examines how immigrant families, the church, and our society become complicit in abuse. Reminiscent of novels like Room and Bastard Out of Carolina, Everything We Said is a harrowing and yet ultimately redemptive novel that will find readers from all walks of life.
Thank you.
So, when are you working on it as we speak? Are you still working on it, or is it finished?
It's finished, and
It is.
I'm trying to find an agent or someone to publish it now, which is where we're going next.
Okay.
And I have a tremendous amount of support from people trying to help me find a home for it. Is the
Uh-huh.
way I like to put it. I
Mm-hmm.
really want to find a home for this story,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that there's I think the story could help a lot of people because really one of the things I also talk about. I had a paper accepted into the Institute for Violence, Abuse, and Trauma, but then COVID happened. I have a whole lecture I do on the vulnerability of immigrant communities to the child
Mm.
sexual abuse crisis in the Catholic Church.
Mm-hmm.
And, oftentimes churches are the American 101, basically, for immigrants. They get
Right.
money from our government, a lot of money to bring them in, home them, and help them get going in life. And they are so vulnerable to abuse and the complicitness of these cities where the cops and the priests and the lawyers and the firemen are all like complicit in this. And we saw that in Pennsylvania, where they could just see the collusion within the communities that these immigrant families were placed in. So, so that this book, I think, really is the story of three immigrant families: the Russos, who give their son to the Catholic Church, who then has a sexual abuse experience at seminary, who then comes into our community where we're Welsh and Albanian immigrants, first generation, and how he, as a predator, enters into this family life, and the secret kind of just stays there. So the story is based on my true story, but everyone says, why didn't you write the memoir? And I did write a memoir. It's also a TV series. It's also a screenplay. Now it's a novel. Probably was a poem at some point. That's kind of how I write. I kind of keep moving the material around.
Right.
But I love the novel format because then I'm able to take my research, make composite characters, and really bring to life a larger story than my own, which is what I want to do.
Right. That I was going to ask you that question. I was going to ask you why you chose to use fiction to tell a true story, so to speak, and because it's a common theme for me. I love to talk about that. I often get people ask me, why do you read fiction? Why don't you read something that's real? They say to me. And I find the truth in fiction, maybe even more than I do in nonfiction.
I agree. And I think the big secret's out, right? Novels really are based on our own experiences, more and more.
Sure.
We'll talk about that. So this little piece I'm going to read is just a page and a half, and it's really about that moment that maybe some of us have had this feeling where you get this feeling about somebody, you're just like, something's up with them, but you're not quite sure. And I've tried to capture that moment in this section of the book. And it's basically the grandfather is encountering Father Russo for the first time, and he has Jo Beth, who's the main character, the little girl in the book, in his arms. And then he has taken her to say goodbye to the parishioners as they leave the church.
Oh boy. Okay, great. I'm going to excuse myself while you read.
Yeah. Evie turned back. Evie's the mom. Evie turned back to look at Howard and Jo Beth as they shook the parishioners' hands and bid them good day. Jo Beth's sweet polka-dotted pinafore matched the dark blue embroidered edging of Father Russo's surplice. Jo Beth looked the happiest Evie had seen her in months. Her little hands reached out to each person in line, her smile big and bright, the little gap between her teeth, no longer a shadow, but lit and gleaming in the violet light reflecting off the tempered glass. Evie felt tender towards her innocence, of Jo Beth's apparent need to receive special attention and care from a man, from a father. Jo Beth looked quite flattered, and Evie for a moment thought, rather vainly for sure, I have produced such beautiful children, and for just an instant that seemed to be what perhaps her purpose was after all. Alec and she had produced beautiful, lovely, well-mannered children for all the world to admire. If nothing else came of their marriage, of the futility of their love, this was enough. Where's Jo Beth off to? Doris and Will asked as they fussed over Michael. Susan pointed towards the church door. I'll go retrieve the little helper. I'm sure Father Russo has to get on with his day, Will said, as he noticed the last parishioner had been bid farewell, and Jo Beth was whispering something in the priest's ear. Father Russo nodded and smiled as he listened, then whispered something into Jo Beth's ear. Jo Beth giggled and held on tighter as her grandfather held his arms out to her. Father Russo handed her over. Her ponytail swung from side to side as she looked up into his eyes. Bless you. Jo Beth reached towards Howard and kissed him on the cheek. Come now, Jo Beth, it's time to go. Father has lots to do on Sundays. Will scooched her up higher on his hip and drew her in closer. Nothing more important than this, Howard replied, extending his hands out in front of him in a rather foolish grand gesture. Well, no more dawdling for us. Goodbye till next Sunday. Will turned. He felt the moment awkward and uncertain. It was difficult to say just what he felt, but the feeling dissolved momentarily as Joe Beth tipped up his hat so she could see his face. H-A-T hat, Joe Beth said. She liked to spell things for her grandfather. He prompted her often enough that now she just spelled things she knew for him without encouragement. Y-E-S. Y-E-S, Will replied tenderly. A peculiar feeling came upon him once again, with such force that he could not ignore it. He turned abruptly and saw Father Rousseau, who was on the verge of closing the church doors, startled to be caught watching him and Jo Beth. A glimmer of surprise appeared in each of the men's eyes, as if something had been disturbed. Then each assumed a formal look that stifled any acknowledgement that each had been caught doing something they shouldn't have been. Will turned back towards his family just as abruptly. He walked with them to the sidewalk. A shudder ran from the heel of his foot to the top of his spine. He wanted to ask Jo Beth what she and Father Rousseau had whispered to one another. What could a priest possibly have to say to a 4-year-old girl? This feeling of indiscretion lingered in his heart as his hand moved instinctively to his top pocket and offered Jo Beth a butterscotch. The heat from the Gothic stone of St. Anthony's emanated to the street and converged with the exhaust from the cars on Central Ave. The family crossed to the shady side of the street and walked away from the church doors, shut and locked, until the next Sunday.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Joanne.
Joanne.
When I come back on, there's a. Do you hear that echo for a second?
Yeah.
There's like an echo from it. So, do you go through? I'm gonna make a confession here. I go through life, especially now, more so now that I have a daughter, very suspicious of people, and like everywhere I go, I catch myself. I mean, I think it's normal. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm totally wrong. But I mean, I think it's normal for us to first impressions, we are constantly making them. I know I am. I don't know if it's normal, but that's what I do. And I'm always doing that. I'm always judging people and assessing them.
Yes.
Especially now that I have a child, and I am very reluctant to leave her anywhere. And even every time Melanie and I talk about this all the time when we drop her off at school, when she walks away from the car, it's heartbreaking every fucking time, like every time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because of this, what you're describing, because I know there's people out there in trusted positions who take advantage of people, of kids, of those of us, vulnerable people.
Yeah.
And it drives me crazy, and it scares the shit out of me.
Yeah. Well, if this will give you any small comfort, is that Mary has so much protection, because most children who fall into these kinds of situations have they don't have fathers present. So Jo Beth's father had abandoned the family.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when girls, and the data shows this, when girls have a strong relationship with their father, they tend to do better just in general in life, and have less trauma experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So she has you, her North Star.
Yeah.
And so I think that in itself is a protection. And a lot of times, predators know those children who are vulnerable, who don't have the parental guidance and protection.
Mm-hmm.
And that's who they target.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of this, right? So you have a family that's been, in a divorce situation. And so that's where children are most vulnerable, actually, is in the divorce situation.
Right. So you wrote so this situation you're describing is your situation, correct? This is kind of what happened in your own
Oh,
life.
yes, yes, yes.
um,
Basically, what you're
I was like, "Fuck! I shouldn't have said that. Doggone it!" I
No,
was
no,
exactly what I was afraid
no.
of.
Everything we said is based on my true story.
Right.
And so what happens is, so people who have read Howard Be Thy Name now, this novel is the whole trilogy
Mm-hmm.
together.
Mm-hmm.
So Howard moves into the house. Has the family captive, and then at the end, you get to see the third part of the book is where people land. What does
Mm-hmm.
Joe Beth
What
do
happens
when
to
she
them?
grows up? What does Vinny do when he grows
Right.
up? What does
Right.
Susan and Michael do? And
Right.
so there's, I made it a happy ending. I'm gonna give the end out.
Right.
It's a happy ending because I think for me I needed it to be.
Right.
Um,
Right. You talked
so,
about that earlier in the show that
oh,
uh, you talked about that, like you. That's why you like writing, is because you are in control of the pieces and you get to move them around to a
yeah,
more ideal place
yeah,
than perhaps what you might have experienced.
yeah.
I want
People
to
have
just
to show up and do the right thing.
Rose wrote something. She wrote, "I remember that point so vividly written. I'm not quite." And
Well,
I
this
don't.
was from Howard.
Oh,
This is
right.
out of Howard. Yeah.
Thanks, Rose. And then Melanie wrote this.
Oh, thank you.
Uh,
I have a little gift for you and Melanie. Would you mind if I read this real quick? It's
no.
6 lines.
Oh,
It's not
no.
my
Of course not.
yeah.
Absolutely, we would love to hear that.
I came across because I love Melanie and I love you and you guys. Your work
Who do you
is.
love more, though? That's what I want to
I'm
know.
never telling. I
Okay.
love Mary. How can I'll do neutral? I love Mary. I love Mary more.
Okay. Safe answer.
I love Mary the most.
Mm,
But I love you both very much. And so
we love you
this
too.
Gwendolyn Brooks poem popped up recently in my life, and you both jumped in my mind for this, and I don't know why. Probably because I've been talking to you was probably why. But
Yes,
um,
Lex.
so this is by Gwendolyn Brooks, and I don't actually know the title of this poem,
Mm.
but here it is. We are each other's harvest. We are each other's business. We are each other's magnitude and bond.
Aw.
And I just love that. It made me
Mm.
think of you both. You guys are so supportive of each other
Yeah.
as artists and as a family, and it's just
Yes.
beautiful to see and watch.
Well, thank you. That's very sweet.
Mm.
Um, that's nice. Thank you very much. Thank you for being on the show. I'm not kicking you off the show. We're gonna do, although we've already gone about an hour and 15 minutes, and I know attention. I mean, it's a lot.
That's a long time.
It
So
is, but I do want to. Thank you, Rose. Everybody's chiming in. You got a lot of hearts, and um, I wanted to talk. I real quick. If you don't mind reading a little passage of Passersby, and I wanted to relate it to what you just read, which is, so in the absence of the father, this this piece is about the father that left,
yes,
correct, or was absent, your
exactly.
father. And Melanie read this piece. This, you can read this on Medium, is that right? I
Yes.
think we'll put it up. I think we need
And
people.
dewdrop and medium.
Yeah, it's really powerful. So you wrote a little piece about your father, and it's really powerful. And in it, you're essentially coming to terms with it, and for I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but forgiving him. But it's powerful. Melanie was and I were really moved by it, and so for the last thing you do with us here tonight, I'd like you to read a little piece of that, if that's okay. And
Yeah.
is
Yes, I would love to read it. And I especially want to make sure I get to read the end of it because I think that's where my heart is in the end of this.
okay. You choose
So
what you want to. Let's see.
So I'll just tell you a little bit about the piece. So my cousin Fody had called me and had told me that my father was very ill. And so I had known that and but I hadn't really talked about it with anybody. Um so I'll just read this. I knew the hotel Fody spoke of, and I knew my father lived there as well. It was a 6-room motel behind a grungy diner. Each hovel had one small window and a dilapidated door that led into a place my imagination refused to go. It's the same way I don't want to go down cellar on a stormy night to fix the fuse box when the light blows. I passed the Sediment of Loneliness motel about 3 to 4 times per month. Sometimes I took the back route to avoid having to avoid thinking about my father sitting in a motel, fatigued, hopeless, languishing alone. I was a passerby, I told myself, just a passerby. And so more goes on, and my father ends up in the Albany Med emergency room, and I get a call from them, and he actually wants to talk to, wants the doctor to talk to me on his behalf. And so at the end of my conversation with the doctor, the doctor says, please don't worry. I didn't worry. Instead, I perseverated on every word I had exchanged with the kind-sounding physician. Why was I trying to help my father? Would he do the same for me? He was my father. If my father truly loved me, he would have stayed or taken me with him. He would have protected me and kept me safe. When I began to understand that his actions did not have to be the voice in my head, my world shifted. When I chanted Om Soham in yoga class, it was true. I am. It was enough to be. I was enough. And then I kind of go through the steps of grief, what happens to children when they're abandoned by a parent, or forsaken is I think a better word, when they're forsaken, and kind of what happens in the way that you cope with that. And then at the end, I kind of try to figure out why I'm still grieving this man who never cared for me. So why did I grieve for him? Why, for the love of God, do I care this man was dead? I asked this every day as I prayed for him until I understood I was grieving as a daughter grieves. I would never be anyone's daughter again, a role I had always been infatuated with. When I saw dads with their daughters, I thought, how lucky to be protected, to be guided, to have a North Star at the ready. Bob, my estranged father, kept teaching me that we are hardwired to love the people who created us, even if they hurt us more than anyone on earth. Time and time again, I let myself relearn that lesson, and each time it was harder. There was never a softer landing. I let myself feel the fool that kept coming back for more. The fool who refused to learn, as Maya Angelou wisely advised, that when people show you who they are, believe them. My brother John and I attended the graveside service. Like passerbys, we buried our father, with a few cousins in attendance and a priest who knew my father as a child. We threw couscous and flowers on the coffin and wished our father's spirit journey, a beautiful journey to heaven. The priest gave a brief eulogy that didn't elevate our father's character nor diminish his time here on earth. He was a man. He made mistakes. We cannot judge. Let his spirit soar. Let forgiveness be his tailwind. Let us passerbys rest. And I dedicated this piece to all of us who've lost our fathers due to estrangement, neglect, incarceration, abuse, alcoholism, drugs, divorce, and death by suicide. And so may all beings everywhere, whether near or far, whether known to me or unknown, be happy. May they be well. May they be peaceful. May they be free.
Joanne,
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
So-
you. This is lovely.
So beautiful. Well done. What a great read. You did a great job reading that.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate my time here. This was, gosh, just figuring out what to read and getting things together. It was just like,
This
it was
was so
joyous today to spend time thinking about writing.
so great having you on the show. And here's some people giving hearts and saying nice things. There's Christy. Thanks for tuning in, Christy. Thank you, Joanne, for being here. Thank you for helping me make this show the thing that I've had in my head for so long. And
Well, I love watching it, so I'm so happy to be here. And I love and everybody
thank
too.
you, Mary Jo.
I got to interview Mark, and he has so many wonderful things to share as well. So I hope you'll read the interview with Mark as well. I
I'm
love
gonna
it.
I'm gonna talk to you. Well, maybe we can talk tomorrow morning. But what I'm gonna put up some links, uh, that in our interview together, and then some of the stuff you talked about. I'm gonna put it up on my Linktree link so people can get to some of the stuff we've talked about here tonight.
Oh, I'll do the same thing. I
And then I'll post about it tomorrow so people can check it out, and I'll send you the link. Or well, you'll already have the links. You're gonna send them to me, but I think that we should do that. And I wanted to just end with this. So I don't know if anybody's ever watched Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee with Jerry Seinfeld. He loves hanging out with other comedians, right? And he just wants to hang out and talk to them. And I feel that way about writers. And I think I just love writers so much. And I could sit here and talk to you for another hour easily. But so I'll just have to have you back on the show.
Yeah.
And thank you for being here. It was lovely. You were brilliant.
I'm
And
still
we,
laughing about our text when you invited me to the show, and I'm like, yeah, what will we talk about? Like
yeah,
4 days.
I knew we would just go on and on forever.
Yeah.
But it was really great. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you for
everyone.
tuning in. What a great night. And we'll see you next week. Thank you, Joanne. And let's see, one more thing. Me too.
Oh, thank you, Rose.
We'll see you next week here on MXDTV. Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you.
Everybody have a great night. Anything you want to say before I end,
Good night.
Joanne?
Just good night and thank you. I love
Okay.
you all.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.